Call this Planning Commission meeting, March 10th, 2025, to order. First item is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any comments, corrections? If not, is there a motion?
Make a mo,
Yeah.
Item number 3, page 25-06, the applicant has withdrawn, so that can be stricken from the agenda.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with item number 3 withdrawn. Is there a second?
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And next is adoption of the minutes from February 10th. Does anybody have any comments, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve those
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Next is the adoption of the minutes for February 17th. Any corrections or comments? If not, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor? All right, next item up is rezoning 25-04, Thomas Lee McClellan, applicant Thomas and Anna McClellan, owner, requesting to rezone a 2.13 acre parcel from NC to RSF 30. The subject parcel is located on McConnell's Highway, Rock Hill. The property is referenced as tax map number 535-00000153, Council District 4, Mr. Roddy. Good evening, Thomas.
Good evening. Thomas Newland, Long Range Planner. So this is rezoning case 2504. This property is west of Rock Hill, just along McConnell's Highway. It's kind of at the confluence of Oak Ridge Meadows Court, Roper Road, Eastview Road, and McConnell's Highway. So this area, judging by the aerials, fundamentally it is a patchwork of both commercial and residential uses. The site actually has 5 structures on it. 2 of them are dwellings, and part of the rezoning is to rectify this and split them apart. The other 2 structures are just accessory, and the center one, the largest one, dab in the center that you can actually see in the aerial, is currently being demolished. So this lot is currently zoned for neighborhood commercial. It's a little bit different than general commercial. It is a little bit smaller in scale. And you can see, again, that kind of patchwork of the different kind of residential scales, and as well as the commercial influence here. So future land use, we have this as a rural center node with an underlying single-family residential designation. The rural center we define as, well, you certainly find these a lot along these major roads, and especially at intersections, and the idea is to provide services and business to the surrounding rural residences. And of course, single-family residential, very characteristic of large lot detached single-family homes. So this parcel has fundamentally been residential for a very, very long time. I used to have some commercial uses, but those have been phased out. And now, while it does have the rural center node on top of it, when we'll take a closer look, you'll see that the Oak Ridge Meadows Court actually doesn't reach to McConnell's Highway. So it's not really an intersection and doesn't make it ideal for commercial development or use. This all happened when Eastview Road kind of got rerouted to match up with Falls Road down at the very bottom. And that's to kind of complete its connection with McConnell's Highway. So all that said, we recommend approval for this request. It aligns with the future land use map comprehensive plan as it befits the underlying single-family residential designation. And while it is within that rural center node, due to it not being a true intersection, we don't see that as a better fit. Any questions for staff?
Thomas, the directly north, is that like a trucking center or a storage area or what?
Self-storage.
Self-storage?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually very interesting because with how the road has moved, you kind of get the roads have kind of formed this interesting dendritic pattern that you would see in more of a suburban area but instead it leads to a large commercial lot, like you said, so it is a very interesting spot.
Yet it's zoned commercial/residential.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's just what happens when you move roads around.
In the application, the applicant states that they are wanting to rezone to residential to sell one of the houses. Is that a requirement for selling it as a residence, that it be rezoned?
Maybe Dan can speak a little bit more to that.
No, the reason for it is to be able to subdivide the property. So they want to be able to cut that property out to be able to sell to somebody else. So they could maintain there and stay there.
Okay.
But to sell it, they have to subdivide the property. So that's the
Gotcha.
reason for the rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion? All right, next item up is rezoning 25-05, Julio Moreno and Gene Wyland, applicant owners, requesting to rezone a 0.185 acre portion of each parcel from RUD to RSF 40 and from RSF 40 to RUD. The subject parcels are located on Holbrook Road and Hamlin Road in Fort Mill. The properties are referenced as tax map numbers 73900000155 and 741000080. Council District 7, Ms. Clonage. Thomas.
All right, so 2505, this is a land exchange fundamentally. Both these properties are east of the Doby's Bridge Road, Fort Mill Parkway intersection, just outside of Fort Mill, kind of on that east side of Fort Mill, and that unincorporated part of the county between I-77 and Lancaster County. You can see here, both of these properties are exchanging 8,000 square feet to one another. So they share that kind of center property line. The RUD one is up top, and the RSF 41 is below that. And the RUD one actually is vacant right now. And the RSF 41, of course, is a primary dwelling as well as an accessory building. And what had happened was the owner of the RSF 40 parcel built a fence that kind of encroached on the land to his north. And so the two property owners came together and decided, well, we'll just exchange the land and get this rectified, so it is no longer an encroachment. You see here, what I have in red is kind of where the fence is, and generally they're gonna kind of draw a new line from that west side. I believe that's I can't read the road name, hold on. Hamlin Road and Stiegel Lane. Back across, meet up with that fence, and then cut south to make up for that difference in the square footage that it would make. So, top one, RUD and RSF 40 for the south. Future land use, they're both neighborhood residential, as is very common in this area, in this side of the county. We recommend approval of this request. The future land use map and comprehensive plan actually doesn't have a lot of bearing in a request like this, and the intended use of the properties will remain unchanged. Any questions for staff?
I do, Thomas. I'm glad that you drew, because I was going to ask about what was encroaching. We didn't have this in our packet, so now I know why. Are they going to be required to get this boundary survey because of this move here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
Because
we've
it
also.
didn't say anything in the conditions here, but I would assume that that would have to be done.
I believe there's a condition that we recommend.
Yeah,
condition
oh, yeah,
the-
there is,
Yeah.
yeah. But, and that fence doesn't, keeping that up there, so the fence is in red, that's where they put it, they didn't extend it to, like, east and west to the property lines, or?
Yeah, so the accessory structure I mentioned before is kind of right in that fenced area.
Okay,
So it's actually very close to that border that they share, and when it was fenced in, it just came over that property line.
is there an agreement that we have to have between the two property owners? Is that required for the rezoning? Like, kind of like an encroachment agreement or whatever? Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Does anybody else have any questions? Is there a motion on the floor then?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve with the condition that the property must be subdivided so that one zoning district is applied to a parcel, and that they've got, shall be recorded within 90 days.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Might have been easier to move the fence.
Right.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Sounds like the accessory building is close enough that it may not meet setback.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right.
Point of order, could I have just a brief aside real quick about the fencing? So when you do have a fence, is there not a setback for the fence from the property line as well, or can the fence come all the way up to the line?
And we actually don't permit fences, so there is no requirements for that, any kind of regulations for that. So it's on the owners to locate it in the proper location.
Yeah. Most of the time, I would say that it's about a foot inside the irons. Typically, that's the way you put a fence in, but not always.
And I've seen some other things that have come before us that have maybe a 10-foot buffer inside, right? And, you know, if you're gonna put a fence, it's gotta be inside that 10, it can't be in that 10-foot buffer, right? Don't we have some regulations like that or not?
You can put the fence within the buffer if it's beneficial to the landscaping that's currently there, so we do have some flexibility for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted a little extra education on fencing since it came to you. Thank you.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next item is rezoning 25-07 Profile Homes applicant, Lake Wiley Enterprises owner requesting rezone a 9.84 acre parcel from GC to RMX 6. The subject parcel is located on Highway 557 Clover. The property is referenced as tax map number 563-00000021, Council District 2. Mr. Litton.
So this property is west of the Lake Wiley area along 557, just beyond the 557 Charlotte Highway intersection. And you'll see in the aerial, it's actually currently vacant. It just kind of sits behind, again, another storage company. I wanted to point out some of the other kind of big uses that are going on in this area. A lot of the land is actually vacant and unused. So in red, we have the subject parcel we're talking about. They're looking to build a townhome community. And directly adjacent to them is Oak Ridge Elementary and Middle School. Just south of them is going to be the Wood End Park. Then even just down 557, closer to the intersection, you have a townhouse development and an apartment complex. So it's currently zoned GC. And the intention, of course, is to rezone it for RMX 6 so that townhomes can be built here. And future land use has it as within the community center node, which is kind of covers, again, we're near a very, very big intersection with 557 and Charlotte Highway. In that community centers, we expect multi-story, mixed-use establishments with very walkable atmosphere and infrastructure. And a lot of the focus of this designation is on cohesive development between residential, commercial, and civic uses. And so kind of adding into that walkable cohesion, here's some of the plans for the 557 widening. And in red, again, we have our subject parcel here. And you can see all along that north side of the road, there's planned for sidewalks, and of course, easy and safe ways to get to the park and to the school. The applicant has also discussed that they would be interested in adding their own paths and stuff so they can reach the school's property from the backside of their own without people having to cross over onto McConnell's Highway to reach the school. So staff recommends approval of this request. We find that it aligns with the future land use map and comprehensive plan. The scale and character matches other residential developments along 557, and its proximity to schools, parks, businesses promotes the walkable elements expected within a community center node. Questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got some. I seem to have all the questions, so.
So you mentioned,
I was gonna,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, Antonio.
you mentioned there was gonna be connectivity to the schools,
Yes.
Walking.
walking, would that also be to the businesses as well? That's, because it said walkability to schools.
Yeah, so in
businesses.
the site plans and from what they told us, there would be a sidewalk that heads south out of the community, and they were also considering a path that kind of heads northwest out and across. You see where the track kind of, see, you can barely see the track in the aerial here, but the idea would be to have them cross over there as well.
Can you go to the widening?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
They're showing sidewalk all the way. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So will the existing road line up with this proposed road on the other side? Meaning, are they gonna match up? As you can see in this drawing, is this driveway that comes, is it gonna match up with somewhat with this, with the road on the bottom, whatever, I forget
Yeah.
what it's called?
That's Glen Brandon, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, given the frontage, it would likely have to.
okay. So, I guess since that's the case, is there a light plan for this area?
Well, I know that
No?
the TIA will be conducted when the formal plan review process comes through. And depending on that determination, they'll have to see about that, but,
I mean, as he says, we will not know until actually the TIA submitted and reviewed for that one, but just given my knowledge, experience with the area, no, they'll never get a light for a 68-unit townhome community. That's not gonna meet the warrants for a light, and there's a light further over at Oak Ridge, so there will not be a light
And
at
the
this
final
location.
determination's made by the DOT.
Well, TIA,
Yeah.
well, DOT for the warrants,
Yeah,
but the TIA probably wouldn't even recommend that, given the location, and it'll recommend it will never meet the warrants for that few number of uses coming out of there.
Diane, is
Is-
Glen, I'm sorry.
Is 557, are they gonna be able to turn left out of the new?
That's a good question, and the TIA will determine whether or not that's going to actually work. And given, once again, my experience and my knowledge, it wouldn't surprise me if the TIA will say no left-hand turns
Right.
out of that site.
Or
It'll
in.
probably be a right in and a left in, so you can travel eastbound 557 and make a left in, but I don't see it's probably not gonna pass with a left out of there.
Left out?
That's my opinion, from just,
Yeah, especially the width of the road, that,
it's
but
a
it was just.
55-lane intersection through there, so that's a tough lane to get out of there, but I think just the traffic volume through there, I don't see it's gonna be able to get a right out. I'm sorry, left out.
Diane, across the street, Glen Brandon, is that going to become an access for Merriway, a secondary
It
entrance?
is, yes.
Okay. Do we anticipate that being widened, or, I just
They'll
kind of
have
gravel?
They'll have improvements
Okay.
as part of Merriway Point.
Okay.
I have a question. So the last few that we've heard tonight, we've got community center node with overlaying neighborhood residential. Do we give precedence to one over the other?
It depends. So I think it depends upon the context about where it's located. And so in some cases, if the overall area is trending towards a certain node sort, then we might give a precedence to that. If it feels as though it's like in the previous one where it was in a node, but we're going for the residential, that area being already established use, I think that makes a difference as well. So I don't think it's always one or the other. It's all put in the context, and we look at both of them.
Couple for you here, Thomas. So when is this widening expected to take place?
2026?
2026, okay. Could you back up one slide to the, no, that's not the right one, the pretty picture, there we go. So, do you know, I don't believe there's a light at Oak Ridge currently, is that right? And 557?
There is a light. at
There is a
Oak Ridge.
light there
Yes.
where the school
Yeah.
and the.
And
all
then
of that-
traffic backs up all along 557, currently.
Right, okay. And so, yeah, that's where I was wondering how they're doing all of that. But if it's, that's currently, right now, you're at 2 lanes with all that backing up and the light being there, right? So we've got another year before it goes to 4 lanes with a light there. And then what's the, do you know what the timeline of development for the park is?
For the park, no, I don't. That's
Okay.
a question I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's what I was curious about.
There was one other discussion that went on about the park, which was relocating the entrance. Because the entrance right now is kind of off. It's a little west of Oak Ridge. But they were, and I'm not sure where it stands today, but there was going to become an entrance either aligned with Oak Ridge or through the side that Glen Brandon is on, because that property, that's flat in that area. So I don't know what traffic pattern that would create, but that might add some more complexity to it.
And was this the one that we got the extra information from the school district
Yes.
about?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I would add that the numbers, the school districts are incorrect in terms of the actual production of students, but the numbers that are in your staff report, those are the correct
correct.
numbers for student generation rates.
All right. You better
Yeah,
run
'cause
that
you
by
put
me
them in
one more
there.
time. Say-
So in the staff report, the numbers for student generation rates are, those are the correct numbers. The school district used the wrong column.
Point E,
And so their letter
52.
that they were saying was going to, number of students generated was actually incorrect. It's too high. So the ones in the staff report are the correct numbers, but their capacity is all correct.
But wait a minute. That's based on the 2019 study, right? So York hasn't had a more recent.
Clover is.
It's
no,
Clover.
sorry.
Clover has
sorry.
not.
Clover hasn't had
No.
one more.
Right, that's the
Getting
most
them all
recent one that
confused.
we
We've had
have.
several. Okay.
And the school report didn't specify where the numbers came from, but I think you figured it out.
Yes.
Will any consideration be taken to preserve any of the existing tree cover in that area?
We always have the same rule with the 20% tree save, and the grand trees, of course, so.
The standard provisions, right?
So, Diane, if I might, this area, along with about another 100, this plot, along with another 110 acres on both sides of 557, look like they were rezoned from RUD to GC 7 years ago?
Correct.
So if you look at the other map, the broader area looks like, I guess, east of the schools is still GC.
Yeah, that whole swath is
that
currently
whole
GC.
area.
That was all done at one time, that
Mhm.
entire section.
I'm assuming with the idea that we thought it was going more that direction, and since then, that townhome, but that townhome isn't that new, is it? Other community?
The townhome predates
Yeah,
this
yeah,
rezoning.
that's been there since
A while.
12?
15 years or so, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Oh, that Harbor's Glen, is that the one that you're talking about? It's further, it's down by Lowe's?
Yeah, the townhouse.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions? All right, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? I personally, I struggled with this for a little bit, but ultimately, I went back to what we've always kind of used as our guide first, is the comp plan. And, you know, it is in a node, so it is intended for a more intense use, not necessarily commercial per se, but I think it's, you know, I understand it was, all this area was rezoned 7 years ago, and it, you know, it was done for a reason at that time, and if it was intended to be commercial, if there was ultimately intended to be commercial development, I would have thought something would have been proposed by now, but nothing has. So, and with the proximity to the schools and to shopping, it probably is the more appropriate place up in that area for this type of development. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add, you mentioned proximity of schools, and I would like to add if, I guess this goes to county council next, but I would like to add that there be some consideration taken as inclusion in affordable housing units. Not sure what percentage, you know, that kind of thing, but I think there's need to be some consideration to kind of developing a solution for that, specifically for school teachers, our first responders. We're starting to get to a point where getting that feeling that they're getting priced out when it comes to housing. I think we need to take an approach to coming up with a solution for affordable housing. So this may be a start.
Excellent. Is there anybody else like to add anything?
Yeah, I would just like to go on record as saying that the access to the 68 homes on 557 with the 4 lanes, obviously there isn't a way to get a second entrance, but I think that could be a traffic limiting step as well.
Well, there is, I think the sketch showed
A connection to the lot to the
connection
right.
to, yeah, so there could be some future, it could be a future point for secondary access. And that's all we really can ask. I mean, you can't.
Yeah. The only thing I'd like to add is, that's the reason why I asked about, you know, are the drives across from each other, you know?
Right.
So, just for safety and everything, I know the TIA, I know it'll be developed after, but, since they're improving 557, I just wanna make sure that they go through all the safety steps, you know, to make make this flow of traffic out of this development safe.
Okay. Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. So all those in favor? No one's opposed, okay. The next item is rezoning tracking sheet. Does anybody have any questions about anything? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All those in favor? We are adjourned.
How dare
You're on
you.
top of that.
How dare you.